You think your kung fu is strong? Try my doom kick style. Hwah!
DKTV, Episode 1. I'm your host, Dr. Rampaggio. In today's episode, I sat down with Michael Zolatoro, creator of Realm of the Underworld and the Zola World line of action figure protective cases. We talked about quite a bit of stuff. It's all captured here in the first episode of DKTV. Doc Rampaggio here, DoomkickTV.
Mike Zolatoro, ZolaWorld.com.
Realm
of the Underworld.
Realm of the Underworld. First off, thanks for doing the interview again. You guys at home might not know this, but we shot this interview last weekend. We had it all set, and like an idiot, I lost all the footage, so this is take 2.
When you flew all the way down, so that was great. Yeah.
I've been flying all day.
Yeah, so yeah, it's all good.
So let's talk about this again. Where did you get started with action figures?
Well, actually, way before action figures, we were manufacturing protective cases.
Yep.
And actually, I've been a action figure collector all my life.
Yep.
Ever since I was 6 years old, I would be going around to flea markets and stuff and trafficking toys.
Yep.
I mean, I remember way back when we would go to like 3-4 flea markets in a day.
Yep.
And we didn't get, like, I didn't have a lot of money growing up. You know, we grew up, not.
Oh yeah,
with a lot.
I'm familiar with that game.
And in the 80s in particular. And one of the things that was really interesting about that was, food obviously was a lot cheaper. So going through high school, I would save my lunch money. And it would be like one thing after the other. At the end of the week, I would probably have like $4 or $3 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like just saving my money. And then I would go to a flea market and I'd buy a figure. And then I would just go, wow, I know that this other guy was selling that figure for like this amount of money. What would you give me for it? So I'd just traffic it. Now, going like 7 years old, 8 years old, I would do this routinely. So I became like a dealer. You know what I mean? And because then we started setting up at flea markets, and I would be sitting there with my own setup at 8 years old, and you'd have like all these dealers coming over, people that had their little shops and stuff. You know what I mean? In the 80s, and some of these guys are like huge today. I look at these names and I'm like, wow, that's so cool to see these people, like how they, they're doing. But yeah, so at 8 years old, I had these guys. I think they're gonna pull one over me. I had a Dune Sandworm in the box. And they're walking over and they're like, what do you want for this? And they're picking up all the Star Wars carded figures and stuff like that. Because I used to buy them on the shelves. Like back then, they were like 50 cents and $1 a piece.
Yeah, I remember going to KB back in the day and it being like 3 for $5 or something ridiculous.
Sure.
I mean, all they ever had was like ATST drive. They didn't have like Han or Luke or any of those guys. They just had like random army builders, which is perfect for me because I love army builders.
Yeah, and the Hulks with the broken legs. You know, an Amigo Hulk with the broken leg that was on clearance for like $1. So I'd buy those. I would buy the, I was just putting the stuff down. As a kid, you just, and I was collecting carded figures at the age of 8. So I would just line my walls up. Well, so it got to the point where, as I got older, I joined the military, and then, I was still collecting in the military. I was going around in Illinois and stuff like that, and went to like Quake Collectibles and all these different places today. It's still around today, which I'm really happy about. And then I didn't really know much about the toy shows until actually, like, while I was in the military, I didn't know about toy shows like beforehand. So I'd just go around to those, and it just turned out that after a little bit, doing all this collecting stuff, that I decided, you know what, I just want to sell a little bit more, but kind of like underground, like not knowing, I didn't want too many people knowing or whatever. So, and then when I would visit the flea markets at a later age, people were like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in so many years. My goodness gracious, like, they'd still ask me the same questions. What does this go to? What does that go to? So it did turn out like that. But after years, I decided to, start getting protection for my collections. And, and I went with other companies, and I've noticed that those companies just weren't doing it right. Like, there wasn't real good protection out there, and I remember spending, oh my God, like $1,000+ on acrylic, and, and it just wasn't right. You had to do, like, all these different things. Like, you got to put, make sure you got tissue paper a certain way, and if you don't, you're going to blemish the card. And I was like, this is too much. And then it took me until I got, like, I was working in my room, and I was moving some stuff around, and one of my figures dropped. And that's when I realized, I was like, and it was an acrylic, and the acrylic cracked, and the figure came right off the card, and I was like, okay, now it's time for something. And I wasn't sure, and I was looking around on the internet and looking for something that would be like to work with this. And it hit me one morning after a toy, like when I started going to toy shows, and it was around this time. I remember waking up in the middle of the night from a dream, and I was an action figure protective case manufacturer making action figures.
Yep.
I don't know if I ever told you this actually.
I don't think you did actually. No.
And I woke up from a dream and I said I'm going to do toy shows. Like I was doing toy shows and everything else.
Yep.
So I was like this guy that like was able to do all this stuff.
Yep.
And literally waking up from that, and it was 2:00 in the morning. And I remember, like, the first thing that went through my mind is, like, I got to do this.
Yep.
It's just not out there. I got to do this. And I know the protection's out there, but it's not my style of protection, like what I can do. And, everybody was telling me, oh, I don't know if it's such a great idea, because everybody's going to say that.
Oh, everyone's always going to say that.
That's, like, fire for me.
Oh,
it's like, you're, like, throwing gasoline and pouring fire. Like, you're pouring gasoline, light me on fire, and just doing it. I was just, like, relentless for weeks, and then I started posting pictures of, like, what I'm thinking of doing, and people were like, whoa, this is actually pretty cool. So, and, my first case was for Masters, and then we just kept on moving. But in 2008, one of the things that I wanted to do was make that dream like a reality, and like I said, I mean, this is a dream since the very beginning of doing what I'm doing today, and just making the dream a reality is, I always said to myself, like, because I was a fan of like the warrior beasts, and stuff like that, and like Skullman was one of my favorite characters, and I told you, and I would play with that figure every day, and like eventually after playing with it for so long, I ended up breaking them because the tree on the bottom is just so weak, you know. And I played with the upper half for years later. But back then, so I said to myself, I wonder when those are coming back out. I want to see these so badly. I want to see them so badly again. It's so much fun. And I remember the feeling that I had when I would pick up on them and smell them. You know what I mean? Because that's the way that they are.
Oh, the smell is the best part.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. So I was, it wasn't me, yeah, hell yeah, dude. But so it came down to the fact that, just getting involved in this and just started looking into like the action figure manufacturing. We started in 12-inch. That was the first thing, because I talked to a factory. He's like, "Oh, just come with us 12-inch, and do this." And that's a long story that I don't even want to get into. Yeah. But we got into 12-inch market, and then we left the 12-inch market, and we started doing we always kept in cases in between. We were always doing cases, and I'll always do them because I feel that I have so many toys that need protection, and I know that I don't stand alone with that. I just want to take the quality of these cases and just branch them out into everything. You know what I mean? So it isn't just Masters and Thundercats, and I just want to go for like Speclatrons. And now we have a case for them. Speclatrons, Galaxy, Galaxy Warriors.
You have a real wide range of cases, right?
Yeah, we have like right now I think there's like 13, but we're going to expand to another 3, so it'll be 16 cases into next year. So. And we're going to get involved in other things too besides action figures. And that's something that we're going to announce something big on here very shortly. But, I wasn't even said on the first interview, actually. Yeah, so that's actually cool, so I'm glad we did a reshoot. So, getting back to that, so the opportunity presented itself, and I wanted to do these since 2008. I wanted to do something like this. So, and it was just a dream. Like I said before, if someone would have told me this when I was looking for these way back when, and said, you're going to be the guy that's going to be re-releasing these figures and actually giving it to a worldwide audience, and they wouldn't have quit it. You know what I mean? I said, well, okay, dude, just tell me another one, Or if you got one of those palm readers, or whatever, I'd just be like, that's why I don't go to those places. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. But, and nothing against that. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? I don't mean it that way. It's just, what my... But, so my getting into this is I had a opportunity, and we just jumped in on it and just kept on rocking and rolling. I mean, we had 4 figures in Wave 1, and then we released 4 figures in a battle pack for Wave 2 for the Realm of the Underworld. The idea with these was to and what my design was to make these interchangeable, because I remember like the original figures that we had, they were, like I said, weak at the core. And I wanted to reinforce them and wanted to make these like a lot better. Like I didn't want someone to suffer the same fate if they're playing with their action figure that's going to break.
You don't want someone's Acromancer's legs falling off.
Yeah, or if I'm playing with it and I decide to just crack this case open right now and play with one. You know what I mean?
Also, we do have some close-up shots of this case because you really can't see it here in this shot, so you will see all this stuff close up.
And that's really cool. And there's all types of different, characters here that we'll get at. But go ahead.
There's a lot of characters. So you started with Wave 1. There's 4 different characters. One of which was the skeletons. So, kind of the same, but paint different colors, make some new characters. And then Wave 2 had even more new characters. Mm-hmm. And actually, a lot of people don't know this, but Crisis from Wave 2 is your main character.
Crisis is the main character to the story, yes.
Hercules came first, but Crisis actually is, like, the Batman, for lack of a better word.
Sure, absolutely. Like, he's the hero character. Now, this is a web. Like, the whole story is a web, so there's so much information into this. What people know is that there is Hercules in this story, so they immediately, we wanted to take the, what I would consider the Michael Jordan of the fantasy world and bring him into a story. And kind of like make it in such a way where people are going to look at this and go, oh, well, Hercules is back. Well, he is back. But the transitions that's going to happen to him is going to make you realize why Crisis is the main character of the story and what he's able to do. I'm working on a graphic novel. Like, I'm actually working on the novel right now for the story. And because we have all the synopsises, I have like all the short stories of all the characters, which everybody knows about. But there's an overall story that basically ties every one of the characters together. And like I said, it's like a big, huge web. And everything kind of revolves around Crisis and the Acromancer as what that is. And long after Realm of the Underworld is over, Crisis' story still continues. And that's the neat thing about this story, and about like how big this actually is. Another thing, too, is, there's tie-in characters that we released for Wave 2, like Praetus, you know what I mean? The Wraith of Acheron. Acheron in Greek means pain. And he, there's a river of pain, which is the river of Acheron, that's actually in the underworld. So this is the thing that he traffics and controls, so there's no wanderers that come into the underworld to basically just kind of like sneak in and try to get back out and say, oh, I got a peek of what that might be. So he just kind of like traps them. But because a lot of this is happening and these gates are opening up to the underworld, the aura from the underworld is being released, and it's what's animating these skeletons. So the more aura that's on the mortal plane, let's just say, the more that you're going to have more skeletons animated, and you won't be able to kill them. So you'll just like slash them, and they'll come right back up. So that's kind of the idea, and that helmet is what controls not only the gates, like the helmet of Hades that you see on the Acromancer. It doesn't only control the gates to the underworld. It opens them, but it also commands the armies of archfiends, which I should say are legions, because at this point you got to realize that whoever, whatever is trapped down in the underworld is going to become an archfiend. So the idea is the more gates that open up is going to be the more aura that's released, and the more of these animated characters that you're going to see. So, with Praetus and with these other with the other guys, there's going to be certain characters in the story that kind of relate. You're going to relate to them. You're going to know who they are from Greek mythology or past, or you might have heard it in saying. But to combine them with our own fantasy characters and actually bring these guys to life is going to kind of make it where it's almost like a story within a story that you're learning something with. And not to say that I'm trying to make it an educational thing. It's just it's really cool.
I think it's good to have something to anchor that people know. Like we were talking about this before, where like a kid could buy Hercules figure, and not even know who Hercules is, and he goes to school and he starts learning about Greek myths, and he's like, oh, Hercules. So it also, beyond just the toys, it could help people get into stuff that they're not into.
Yeah, I've heard it from a lot of people already. Just between the first two waves is like the inspiration behind it, and they said, "Well, I'd love to write about this, or I'd love to do," And one of the things that I'd love to do is, and I've said it for a while, and that's the whole reason for the novel, is to kind of like pitch it in a bigger picture. You know what I mean? And let more and more people see it and know what the story is about. Because like I said, there's so many webs. There's so many different webs. Like the Arcturus character. The way he turned out is not really what the original release was going to be. And he has a white robe, as you can see on here, but the original intention was to have a brown robe, and he was supposed to have like a certain scent to him. And the reason for the scent is, well, I just wanted the brown robe, but the scent came with it. And I said, well, you know what, this actually is pretty cool, because he's supposed to be this ancient artifact stealer. And he's stolen from many people, and he has this this ability to him that he's able to be unbeknownst, and people don't realize like he's sneaking up on him and he'll steal something. Well, he did it to a wizard, and a wizard actually cursed him and says, "Well, you'll never steal again, and you're going to have a hard time with it." So when he got cursed, he actually glows in the dark.
And he glows, believe that, they glow bright.
Well, the quality that we wanted to go with everything, and the idea with this was to keep the quality high, and still produce something that was going to be have this retro look to it, but have this high quality and high standards. And that and that's why it was kind of a push between the two waves, and people were wondering what was the weight, and the weight was okay. Well, we had Arcturus come back, and he had a thin wand, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the way like his staff turned out, so I wanted to make it where it can be gripped a lot better. And then you could see it in the hands of some of these other characters, how it's being held, and and that goes the same with a lot of these other the other weapons too, to make sure that the skeletons are going to actually be able to hold these things pretty nicely. And going back with the chains and making sure the chains were going to look good.
I love the chains, man.
Chains were actually something that they did back in the day too, and I think that's really cool to see, and we wanted to enhance that. Now, the cost on all this is very expensive, and we wanted to basically keep moving forward, and that was the idea. Is if we release these the highest quality, people got to be able to see like how awesome these actually are. Soft goods on figures wasn't done for you see like present day. I don't remember seeing anything present day within the last little while that actually had soft clothing. And when we released that, a lot of people had said that, like, wow, the introduction back to cloth and getting these capes and getting all this stuff, so it set a standard for a lot of these other guys. So I saw just recently someone actually approached me and said, dude, the idea that you had with Realm, I actually took that and put it on one of my other figures, and dude, I couldn't believe how fast like people wanted them because it had that feel to it. I said, yeah, it's great. And it's just the idea of being able to put that in a bigger picture, in a bigger thing there.
Well, I think the cloth works especially good for guys like this too, because they don't have a lot of sculpted clothing. Like you'll see like a Star Wars guy where he has his robes are all sculpted, but then his actual Jedi robe is cloth, and it kind of sticks out. But with these guys, they don't have the sculpted clothing. I mean, they have the boots and the bracers, but it's not such a drastic contrast.
Correct.
And I think that helps immensely.
Yeah, no, I agree. And especially with like what I said before with Arcturus, the idea was to have the brown garb. And when I went to the factory and I showed it to him of exactly what we needed, and I didn't go there, I'm just basically figuratively talking. We're sending pictures, and I talked to him. Communications. We're doing a video chat, but it isn't like you're not
actually at the factory.
I don't want to have to go there, but I know
China's a long flight.
No, it's not just that. It's just the regulations and everything is one of the things, and so I'm going to have to go. Like, I know that already. Coming into maybe next year or the following year, I'm going to end up going just because I have to. There's a lot of things that I got to show them of what we're looking at the factory, and it's very hard to explain. And that's the hardest thing. To produce an action figure and be able to explain it and then have your finished product coming out, how you explain it is very tough. And especially a carded action figure at that's on blister cards. Like, just to give you an idea, you could see how the blister cards are, where you have an action figure outline, sort of like the retro, just like how they were. And I wanted to do it in such a way where, like going into a room and seeing your original stuff, and then right next to it, you could almost tell, like, wow, that's really cool. There's almost like a seamless recreation between the two. And having it where it's vacuum formed on the weapons, you know what I mean, like the originals, but still had that was really tough, and just trying to explain that, it was really tough.
It's tough to get that across with the language barrier and all that.
Yeah, and I think that, getting back again, and I keep on sidetracking myself. So I asked them about the robe for Arcturus, and they basically told me that they didn't have that material, that brown material. So I looked far and wide all over the place, and I ended up finding the material into a factory. And it was not in the United States, actually. And I contacted these people, and they said to me, this is all we have left. And I asked the factory how much you need. They told us what we needed. So the factory was closed for a very long time, and the material's over 100 years old. It has like a smell to it, and I said, wow, this would be just great, because the character is ancient, and to be able to have this garb on him that's ancient would be awesome. So I got the stuff, and I sent it over there, and we thought we had more than enough because of the way it was, drawn out. And the fact of the matter is we didn't have enough. He said, you don't have enough for these. And well, wait a minute, you gave me this number, and this is the number that we... So getting back to it, so it became the variant. It became the variant on what it seemed like that everybody wanted, because
and now
like,
they're going for big bucks on eBay too,
right? Yeah, I've seen them on eBay. I've seen them on like different websites now, and they
Yep.
sell. I mean, people
Yeah.
want them because that's what they are. They're
Yep.
like, oh man, €100 garb. I and again, that's something that I thought to myself that I don't recall that ever being done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it would have been like a first manufacturing type
Yep.
of thing, and there's a first of many in Realm.
Yeah.
Like I said, like the third wave is like the first pelted and flocked action figure, retro action figure. It's never been done, you know? So it was something that I wanted to go ahead and like toss across there. And there's a lot of firsts that we're working with. Like with the Flexors, to produce a Flexor and have it sort of fantasy-based, because you had the Flexitrons, right?
Yeah.
But you never had them like this, where, the Flexitrons had interchangeable heads, but what did they interchange with? They interchanged with each other.
Yep.
What I wanted was to have a complete action figure line that was going to interchange heads with those.
Yep.
So you have the capability to swap and then combine whatever you wanted to do into
Make whatever you want.
Exactly.
On that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Today's episode of DoomkickTV is brought to you in part by
Papa Petrie's Pizza Palace. Come on down and have a pizza and a soda too. Over 500 locations worldwide.